everyone. Welcome to the last Sunday poetry reading and open mic. This is presented by the Writers Guild at Bloomington. And I'm Patsy Ron. I'm going to host this event today. Today we have two guest poets. They are Doris Lynch and Shana Ritter. Now each poet will be reading for 7 minutes, and then they'll get another chance to read for 5 minutes. And following our featured poets, we are actually going to have an open mic with our audience, a group of poets and non-poets who are here today to share this with us. So let me introduce our two featured readers. Doris Lynch has recent work in Tipton Poetry Journal, Flying Island, Frog Pond, Modern Haiku, Contemporary Haibun Online, and in the anthologies Cowboys and Cocktails, Poetry from the True Grit Saloon, Brick Street Poetry Inc., 2019, and in the Red River Book of Haibun, Red River Press, New Delhi, Indiana, 2019. She has lived in places as diverse as Arctic Alaska, Yogyakarta, Indonesia, Berkeley, California, New Orleans, Louisiana, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and of course, Bloomington, Indiana. Shana Ritter's poetry and short stories have appeared in various journals and magazines, including Lilith, Fifth Wednesday, and Georgetown Review. Her poetry chapbook, Stairs of Separation, was published by Finishing Line Press. Her novel, In the Time of Leaving, is about exile and resilience, set in late 15th century Spain and was published in 2019. A Pushcart Prize nominee, she has been awarded the Indiana Individual Artist Grant on multiple occasions. For more info and her occasional blog, you can find it at shana-ritter.com. So Doris, I believe you're going to start us off.
Great. Welcome, everyone, and thanks for joining us today. I'm going to start with a poem about my favorite time of day, and it's also my favorite time of night, and it's called After the Gloaming. Things we dance upon, the road, the setting crescent moon, our forgiving beds, whether squishy or firm, but not all nights allow for dance erasure. Some nights, ecstasy eludes us. We wander the leaf-skittered lanes, stoop to avoid bats, and when night recovers its silence, we count the crown tips of constellations, remembering our ancestors millennia ago who stepped away from their campfires to experience danger and awe. And totally different. As a teen, I really loved roller coasters. So this is my paean to those high riders. The amusement park we went to, their slogan was, "Life is a lark at Willow Grove Park." So this is called Roller Coaster Riding. For the Thunderbolt Alps and Little Scenic. Wind slams my face, teary eyes and all that. Hair whips into pampas grass, gale strewn, losing my stomach on the first steep downhill, recovering it on the slow ascent of the third. What roller coasters do is give us permission to leave the body, rebel against its tethering to earth, its refusal to meld into sky. Only our screams can bring it back, better, wilder, more free. And I think, like a lot of you, I was longing to go other places this summer, and particularly to the ocean. And I used to spend a week or two each summer in Jersey. And so this is called Praising the Atlantic. And it was my way of going to the shore without leaving. At the edge of the sea, you are more than human. You are whale and flounder, dancing porpoise and somnolent seal. You are the sunlight and the blue-gray depths. Saline infuses your cells as though all the salt caverns of the world circulate through your body. You are the ocean surf, crash and whoosh, splash, release, and lap, lap, lap. Some days the scalloped edges of the sea write and rewrite their stories. Other days the last inches of a wave elevate you skyward and you water ski over crumbling sand. In the sea foam, shells clink and clank. The softest pings of the tiniest seek shelter inside your bathing suit. The ocean, whatever its name, Atlantic, Pacific, Caribbean, enters you, fills you, makes you whole again. You are the mango orb the sea releases into the sky each morning and rocks gently to sleep each and every night. And I think we're all aware of the pretty damaged state of our world. So this is a lament and a call for action about our damaged earth. The watch we keep. At summer dawn, before day's end, during stormy midnight hours, when stars burrow inside clouds, the watch we keep. In firefly fields, through the burl forest, among leaping grasshoppers, churring cicadas, inside the pulsing skin of the bird chorus, the watch we keep. Over the newborn's crib, near precious but broken heirlooms, beneath the sagging porch roof, while tornado sirens rail and thunder reverberates, the watch we keep. Over the sickbed, in the living rooms of strangers, on immigrants' paths, ignoring polluters' largesse, bankers' caution, rule makers' fury, the watch we keep. In the daisy field, on April grass so green, our hearts leap, amid the gold tinder of fallen poplar leaves, on lake shores, past the river bend, climbing mountain flanks while resisting the pull of the slough, on the equinox, during the solstices, on this precious and fragile Gaia, the watch we must keep. And my last poem in this section is a pandemic poem. And this is for all who have suffered and died this year, which was really billions of people. It's called In a Plague Year. How thin our skins, how porous our permeable membranes, how barely protected our ribs and hearts. We breathe, yet our noses and eyes offer pathways for dangerous pathogens, ineffectual tears. No moats exist, no guardhouses, no fences, no cages, no safe rooms, no churches, no mosques, no synagogues, where liturgy can free and shelter us. No cement walls, no bristled animal skins provide us with safety. Barely clothed, we board the subway, arms stretched wide as we try to balance without gripping poles, grabbing handholds. We try to protect ourselves by reading signs that warn us of many disasters. We walk naked in these streets, only our faces clothed with masks that mark us as human, vulnerable. We stand at the border of hospitals, raising our prayer hands toward a bleeding sunset sky. Each night we bargain with the sharp angled stars, yet all their magmas and fiery coronas fail to protect us. And now I'm going to introduce Shana. I met both Shana and Tonya Matthew at a journal writing group with Jenny Kander 20 odd years ago. So I've had the pleasure of hearing both their words hot off the anvil. So please welcome my friend, Shana Ritter.
Thanks so much, Dory. I'm going to start with a question poem. What if this is the last day? If suddenly the sun arched back behind the trees and the moon fell, pieces of moon rocks like hail all around us, the sky folding into a pale blue handkerchief until there was no up to look up into. What if all the second hands on the last of the faced clocks poised at 2, the digital numbers on all the others caught between, and we could not count time in the darkness? Would we reach for each other's hands? Fingers intertwined with fingers, seconds falling from our lips. What is it I know of Earth? What can I understand about solidity? And still you reach into me, changing the shape of things, extending the delicate ends, the unopened buds, the green yet to come. When I rise into wind, you sway. The pond ripples, revealing stones, more solid things. What am I but what blows away? You stay, ready to burst into fullness, full of small living things resting against you. These words are the wisps I leave when I shift into fog, rise higher and higher to encircle the moon, which shines with no light of its own at all. What if this was the last day? Would we find a place to rest, your back curving along my back, vertebrae for vertebrae, turning forehead to forehead, then until I am sky, pale, thin, early spring, and you, the branches thick and bare, reach into the air surrounding me in the places we meet. We shape each other, length against breath. A long, long time ago, in those days when we traveled freely, I went to Sweden, where I met my husband, who was from Spain. And I went to the village where his family was originally from, which is a tiny town on the edge of Spain. And I actually just wrote this yesterday. The first time I went to the village, it was late summer, 1976. And everyone in the town of Mieza de la Ribera commented, "There goes Concha's boy with an extranjera." A foreigner was something to remark about. In this place of cobbled, narrow streets, at the end of Spain, the hand-laid rock walls mark the land still worked by mules, sheep bells tumbling up and down the terraces all the way to the river. Afternoons, after dinner was put away, the women took low-legged chairs out by their doorways into the shade of the narrow stone ways between the stone houses. They sat tatting the thin cotton thread, making doilies or squares that would add up to tablecloths or bedspreads, and they chatted up and down the street, their hands moving quick as the swallows that would come in the evening. Men's voices rose from the plaza over cards and sips of coffee, slaps of dominoes against the outside tables. Little ones' whispers came through the windows where they were supposed to be taking siestas. The rest of us, young enough to be restless even in the still heat, found our own nooks of shade, hidden from the wide, unrelenting Spanish sky. Dory, you and I must be having the same feelings about the sea. I've been missing it tremendously, and this is called Because I Can't Be by the Sea. I try to find silence in the lining of my coat. under a blanket made of silk, amidst the thinnest slice of air pressed between two panes of glass. Still, there is a humming that whirs with yearning, the lament of the owl when the old barn came down, the whippoorwill who could not find his boundaries. A calling for the sea rises in me, the ever-changing line of time, the distant horizon where sky meets water and blue becomes blue, becomes blue. Oh, how I miss the salt on my lips, the variance of waves, the shift of currents. Even here, in this place that's become beautiful to me, all treed and green, creek and ravine, I'm landlocked. I'm so far from the sweep of coast, so distant from that vast expanse. Before, in that time that used to be, I traveled often, hemisphere to continent, but now I wonder if I'll ever see the ocean again. How deep the missing of something that cannot be held. I sense the waves cresting in a faraway, long for the scent of salt to fill me. Instead, it is just my breath, breath after breath, and all the songs of yearning become silent, come to rest on the bone above my heart, rise and fall along the lines of my skin. I choose what to let in. Outside my windows, the sun rises above the tree line. The breeze rocks the leaves in the highest branches. A kind of hush. It becomes enough for now. I've grown tired of reaching for what is just too far away. This is my last poem, and it's called Return. From above, the fields appear open and bare, the earth's body revealed, rich and dark, shadowed, raw, tender. I think of taking things apart. I think of how to rebuild. Rain lingers, leaves offer a last brilliance, a sheen soon to be dull rusts and ambers. Water without surge or pull is silent, still, clear. Goodness is born on a current. Within each heart, there is something great and good, something full of light, something unfathomable. There are those we have touched who have opened, and those we have touched who have closed to us. We may never know why. Still, we carry them. Blood, bone, tissue, breath, they carry us home. Thank you.
Okay, I want to shout out to Patsy for organizing and Pat for engineering and everyone for coming. This section is all Haibun, and it's not really long, there's 4 Haibun. And Haibun is a form that I've gotten really fascinated by in the last 10 years. And it started out as a Japanese form by the great-great-great-great-great-grandfather of haiku, Basho. And so it dates from 17th century Japan, and it's really taking off finally in the States. And of course, it's changed over all those centuries. So I am going to start with In the North Woods. It's a form that's both prose and poetry, and the poetry is haiku. In the North Woods. At bedtime, we eat sky. The curve of crescent moon slices through clouds, silvery canoe of it. Under it shines cicadas thrum, while nearby a skunk waddles down the gravel road, rattling stones. Below Orion's belt, doe and fawn nibble at shadows. Mottled in the dark sky, the clouds part, and the moon floats past. Night eels swim. Kingfishers dive sharply toward the meadow where we've staked our tent. Hearing a shriek, we follow another night bird's dive. Across the darkening fields, bushes take on fierce animal shapes. We hear growls in the wind. Wolves, you ask? Coyotes, more likely, I answer. When night quiets again, we look down to discover, on leaf beds, late season fireflies, faintly pulsing. And one thing I like about Haibun is it can cover many subjects and many moods, and this is an entirely different mood. It's called Turbulence over Minnesota, and it's not about politics. Far below, the silver of unnamed lakes. Several passengers hit the ceiling hard, but one child, lithe and long-limbed, floats, arms outstretched, over the jet's center aisle. Hurriedly, two stewardesses unbuckle their seatbelts and race toward her. Noticing the girl's smile, her gently bobbing flight, they turn and help four bruised and terrified customers back to their seats, then stride toward their own. Red hair streaming, the girl steers with her arms. Turning sharply, she flies in the same direction as the plane. Her only trajectory is forward. One sunset after another, flying west. And high on my list of states to visit is New Mexico. And so this is about an experience we had there. It's called Beneath the Voices of Ravens. Pueblo Bonito, Chaco Canyon, New Mexico. We are shadows, grasping for shadows of the distant past. Others who walk these paths sought warmth and camaraderie inside these walls, welcomed newborns, comforted the sick, told night stories. The same bright sun warms our backs as we wait, as they did, for the silence of night, the jeweling of stars, the hope for a new dawn. Rising to the rising sun, Pueblo voices. And while we were camping, first in the morning, the second morning, there were 3 Native Americans who chanted the sun up, and then later in the day, they chanted the sun down, and it was a very memorable experience. And finally, I'm going to close with a short one. In the wee hours, between midnight and dawn, my body practices leaving, using sheets for sails and the bed frame for a prow. My body rehearses its last goodbye. Stars and moon lose their sway. Locked doors no longer contain me, and our bedroom windows become as porous as air. Every quarter hour, the cuckoo escapes again. Thank you. And now back to Shana.
Thanks so much, Dory. I really appreciate it. Thanks for your lovely poems. This is called Mapping. There is the whole of something, and there is the line surrounding it. There is the depth and the curve and the bend when the curve becomes an angle not unlike an elbow tilted precariously, where everything appears to have shifted, but it never changes what it is. There is the whole of something, and then there is the whole of something. That thing is immutable. Like a map draped over a table, the rectangle changed to a square, but the map remains a map, and it is our world. The edges cause some waters and lands to spill into space and others to come sharply into view, as if the center of everything but the distance between Rio and Antarctica remain the same. The distance between Reykjavik and Puerto de Plata remains the same. Each kilometer Every mile along longitudes and latitudes measures the same as it has always measured, even as the fold of the map creases, creating a permanent line along the shore of Australia, where the Great Barrier Reef is falling away and the clouds of fish are searching out depths and hollows to hide in. The Arctic Circle has disappeared beyond the other edge as the last group of narwhals make their way through rising seas and falling ice, past the calving glaciers and the stars falling into the brief spaces between light and light. Near the center of the map, splayed across the center of the table, run the Atlantic currents. Troughs and channels crossed and crossed, great lines of souls fracturing the deeps. One woman rode her way across alone by day and alone by night, and she almost turned to salt. Islands break the blue in the south of the Great Pacific, between rifts of water where waves, remembering the curve of huge, billowed, hollowed out logs, the break of oars, voices chanting when the seas used to be sung to as they were crossed. Water stays water, salt stays salt, even as the depths slip and rise and tides reach, ocean remains ocean. What changes are the shores, the curving line, the rising cliff, the bits and pieces. Another pandemic poem, because let's face it, it keeps going on and on. To remember these times. Breath in, breath out. Count the measures between. Stand still, watch, then walk around the pond. Follow the steps worn into the ground. Notice the flowers. Today's profusion of chicory, the lessening daisies, goldenrod, and Queen Anne's lace. All give way to the lengthening grasses. Where yesterday just a few leaves lay scattered, today the grass is covered in the fallen. A friend texts photos from a long ago visit. Our dark, long hair all rustled from the sea, our faces online to counter the sun, our children, still children, lean into us. I have let go of counting years. I mark time by the height of each of my grandchildren, by the width of their questions. At night, I notice the shifting constellations, the moon's phases, the last fireflies, the noise rise, the cicadas, timbrels, hum, everything readying for summer's end. The woodpeckers hover at the feeder. The owl's distant call breaks across the afternoon. One day is nothing like the other. I name what I can. One last poem to end with. There was a time in which we touched. Strangers pressed the soft skin of their palms together, fingers tucked in around each other's hands, skin upon skin, a naked touch of lines and veins, a sign of trust to show that nothing was concealed. In other places, someone newly met would stretch their neck and reach their lips to brush another's cheek, once upon each side. Faces so close you could not see anything. It was all feel and whisper. Sometimes, if you'd met once before, each might reach their arms to embrace, draw bodies so close together, heartbeats would transverse the bones, flesh melt in a momentary joining, as if the distance between us would disappear. Thank you.
Thank you, Shana. Thank you, Doris, so much. It was so wonderful to hear your poetry. I feel like I've been dying of thirst. And hearing your work has just, given me this most wonderful cold drink of water. It's just wonderful to hear both of you. Beautiful work. And so we're going to begin our open mic portion of the event. So let's see, I think Eric, I think you're the first one up.
Thank you, Patsy, and thanks to Pat, to the two of you have really organized a great little event here. I really appreciate it. The first poem I'm going to read, the title of it is A Date Given in Numerals. So it's literally guaranteed to be a dated poem by the time you hear it. That's the way things go these days. History is moving on really rapidly from day to day these days. 9/24/20. Days of contempt. Dry. Black dirt gone ash colored. You can imagine smoke anywhere. Are we falling, or is something falling on us? What held the whole thing up has failed. The heart tires, straining amidst trials that test it to the breaking point. We feel it all day long. We feel it all day long, and as possible as it is to go on, we hope it is as possible to stop. Thank you. And our next poet is Mary Feeney.
Hi, thanks. This poem is about the pandemic, and the title is, What Have You Been Doing During COVID Time? I've been sighing out loud, stamping my feet, screaming long screams, daydreaming, feeling the softness of the velour couch blanket laying over me as I binge watch another Netflix series. And I also listen to the birds, watch the dog play, cherish grandbaby's one-tooth smile. I gazed at clouded blue skies, winter turning to spring, summer to fall, all the while wondering what will happen next. How will it happen in this crazy COVID time? I watched the sunsets blazing away, landing hard then dissipating to become the dark gray of night, happening every evening, whether I help or not. That's what I've been doing, watching things happen over which I have no control, and acknowledging that in this pandemic, as in all of life, I don't know the what or why. It's all just happening as we continue on amid the corona and racial cruelty and poverty and sadness and goodness, amid the allness, amid the oneness of this pandemic time, this COVID time of ours. And our next reader will be Roger Bingston.
Okay, thank you, Mary. And thank you, Patsy and Pat, for helping to keep the word alive and moving forward. I'm going to read a poem called Statues. This is one of my backyard poems, or maybe more specifically, a deck poem. Statues. Endangered they may be, but the rusty patched bumblebees are busy this evening, landing heavy in a flower box of million bells, whose palette of lavender, orange, and red is all a tremble when a finch blinks itself to the edge of a crystal bowl spangled with sunset, a twitching presence seeking water. And so we assume the pose, book or drink in hand, our silence, a proffered trust of stillness and joy. And the next reader is the incomparable Tonya Matthew.
Oh. Roger, thank you. I'm going to read an early pandemic poem, March 23rd, 2020. The cat and I sit on the front porch, glad for a patch of sunlight. Like the tall maples across the road, their highest branches a haze of red. The cat is licking his paws, cleaning his face over and over, stopping only to watch an elderly dog led up the hill. There are no groups of dogs being walked, no slapping noise from down the street, where a teenager usually skateboard on and off the curb, on and off the curb, on. And the man at the corner isn't sitting outside. There's emptiness, filled with silence, waiting. The maples wait with me. And our next poet is Thomas Tokarski, and I'm glad to welcome him here.
Thank you all for having this wonderful program. I'll say this poem is about what I hope will not happen to our world, and it's called Foreshadow. A child asked, "Where have the birds gone? No wings in the skies, no songs." I replied with regret. From swans to swallows they flew among us, needing a place to dwell. Even the chirp of a sparrow was a song of belonging, calling from its place here. But we imagined ourselves above all the others, gave them no room to be. A child went to the forest, but the trees were burnt and bare. No wind chorus in the pines, no fox flowing like a shadow through the trees. Why, the child asked. I answered in empathy. Our own breath is born in leaves. Our spirits dwell in the lives and mysteries of the quiet beings of the forest. But we did not know enough to let the trees sustain us. We are clever beings, but often unwise. We did not imagine forests could die. I took a child to see the waters of the world, from rills and streams to rivers running to seas, once overflowing with creation. From fish to falcons, water is the form of life. Our own blood is born in the rains. But now the waters are dark and foul, plankton and dragonflies gone, shrimp and seals gone. We wanted it all for ourselves with little respect for the community of others. What's left is barren and bereft. I showed the children the enduring beauty in a vastly clear night sky, reminding them that all of our lives, from butterflies to whales, merge here on this one earth. You, the children, can help us to understand as we reach out our hands and minds to all the others to heal and to hope. Thank you. And now on to the very fantastic Denise Breeden Ost.
Thanks, Tom. My poem is called Supply List for the Writer Mother. Pen, paper, 2 earplugs, 1 locking door. It's true you have to choose, but not once and for all. No, you have to choose now, and Tuesday morning, and next year. Nobody can do this for you. Several white handkerchiefs for days of surrender. You'll need to let your heart bleed through, your 2 loves color each other. Faith that this matters. Stubbornness and gentleness. Paper, pen. Our next reader is Ken Lott.
Times we're living in right now, I'm often seeking some comfort and some sense of order and some sense of constancy in my life. And one of my places that I do that is on my backyard patio. This poem is called The Mail Truck. From my backyard patio, the sun is blinking between the bearing limbs of serviceberry trees, closing its eyes to the evening. I gauge my day by the little mail truck's gentle purring in the distance, bringing the world from afar. And then its appearance around the cul-de-sac, like the reassurance that the earth continues around the sun. The truck's small amber lights blink as if to quietly signal, see, I am here as normally. When the neighborhood, indeed the whole world, is wondering if the COVID virus has come around to give us a new normal. But is anything normal, or is normal just another name for my own wish? The little truck, some fear, may soon be in jeopardy, its days running down with the resources of its master, the Postal Service, running out. For now, though, the little lights pulsate among the shadows, and I place my hand to my heart. Thank you. Our next reader is going to be Patsy.
I decided to read a poem that I wrote for my mother when she was 99. She lived to be 100 years old, and she passed away a number of years ago. And about 3 days ago, I had a dream where she called me on the phone and she said hi. So I'm going to read this poem. It's called The Elderly Hands. Your hands, mountain ranges and valleys and flowing veins, gnarled and knotted, joints angling every which way, your hands are still to be held to remind me how much those hands have felt in their day, how much those hands have done, how many moments I saw those hands serve me food, and later dip into soapy water on a summer's eve, the clinking and clacking of pots and pans and silverware at the bottom of the sink, all carefully handed over to sit in the dish rack to patiently dry. Your hands did what was needed, knew how to plant the watermelon seeds or feed the rabbit and sweep out the gray ash from the fireplace where once a bat got lost and fluttered about the chimney chute until it flew free out the chimney top. And stepping outside, you shielded your eyes with your hands to watch that bat flutter black against the dusky sky. Okay, Eric, we're back to you.
Thank you. This is called Home and the World. Windows open, air moist, slightly fragrant, light cream-colored from passing through dense clouds. The world seems distant, or is it only that the violence of the world is not heard here? It is hard to name all the powers moving the world, but surely violence is one, as is virtue, as is justice, as is injustice. Insects singing crowd every tree in the forest, or it could be not singing, but yelling, each yelling its name or crying out for help. Altogether, the sound they make is like the world shouting at me out of its desire and danger, its confusing abundance. And next is Mary Feeney.
Thank you, Eric. This next poem is called Meditate. I breathe the breath of life and try to see the world as a wondrous place, so large, so eternal, that my concerns fade away. As instructed, I breathe deeply and slowly. Eyes closed, I gaze up at the space between my eyes. The third eye, it is called. When I stick to my practice, I sometimes see a bluish purple lake, or sometimes a sort of light show with bursting rays of violet and pink. Other times, just shadows of dark and lighter. I silently chant my mantra as taught me. I sit for a certain amount of time, an investment in my mental health. It seems to calm and ground me. It seems to bring peace that I can borrow on later in the day, like a bank deposit into a serenity bank. When I don't do it, I feel it. Such a small thing to do to keep myself aligned, to live with less anxiety and fear. Meditation reminds me that there is a resource just there that I can tap into, the beingness of peace, a universe of calm and forever. The dailiness of life softens when I meditate in the eternal. And now our next poet will be Roger Fingston.
Well, I too have a pandemic poem. This one is called For Their Intimate Company. In this aberration of days, I walk among the trees, distance of no concern, or stop and lean into their easy reach, even sit a while and listen as they creak to the whim of the weight-lifting wind, leaves slurring their words, a slow tune unlike the quick burst of birdsong, or my own voice, trying lines that may or may not last beyond the morning hour, though more than glad for the one that clings like a new leaf. And once again, Tonya Matthew.
Thank you, Roger. I wrote this poem some time ago after I'd been up to Chicago and seen an exhibit of Georgia O'Keeffe's work. To find the place for Georgia O'Keeffe. The clouds stretch away within a frame hung on the wall, like white lilies on a blue pond, or paving stones white on a blue courtyard. Standing there, looking, I feel as if invited to fly, but it's only paint on a canvas. I know this, and I must leave when the gallery closes, but oh, how I want to place my feet on one cloud, then another, walk beyond the horizon, find the place where I'll see with her bone-sharp eye. And our next reader is Thomas Tokarski, a true lover of the earth.
This poem is called Release. Trees sway with the wind in variable waves of grace as the clouds send down their rush of rain. Freed to the land, the shower is an audible scrim, a gray wash over leaves and limbs. The flowers in the fields, heavy with wetness, bend as if in thanks for what they have been given, for what they have become. There seems no separation of earth and sky, of mind and meaning, of the wind and the rain. All is free, released, and mixed in the madness of wonder in common miracles. And the next poet is Denise Breeden Ost.
Thanks, Tom. This is called The Lake Above. Maybe we could dive down into up, haul out under that moon, hear the crickets in those wavering black trees. What if we already did? Maybe we forgot as our inner gravity righted itself, the way adults don't play anymore, the way we feel ourselves forgetting how to pretend. Heads tipped back, we hang on the edge of belief until our necks ache. When we stand up, we stand down, walk home on bare feet, twinned through the warm earth. Later, I'll peer into puddles like mirrors, wondering why I expect to see you there. Next is Ken Lott.
For the last 20 years or so, my wife and I and family have been able to visit Pawleys Island, South Carolina on a regular basis, several times a year often. And I've spent a lot of time there, and so I began to be moved in many ways by the ocean. This poem is called Ocean Wandering. Wonder what the ocean thinks, whose bellies sliced by ships, boats, and plane floats, propellers, oars, and things that jab. Does it ever wish in turn to stab? Wonder what the ocean thinks that men would rob and rend and maim, collect its wealth, pay no dues, and feel no pain? Does it ever wish itself to drain? Wonder what the ocean thinks that folks leave wrappers nets and toys, ever bobbing fishing boys, and other types of residue? Does it ever want to soothe? Wonder what the ocean thinks that bombs and shells and things explode in planes, ships, and bodies sink. Some implode. Does it ever wish to rid itself of this load? Wonder what the ocean thinks that clouds of oil choke its fish and waterfowl, gluing wings like heavy lead and spreading muck upon its bed. Does it just shudder and hang its head? Wonder what the ocean hopes, to feel upon its head the gentle rain, to breathe the natural world of hurricane, to shout when thunder's echoes start to roll, to smell the air as morning light unfolds, to see it dark when lightning's silver streaks, to lie beneath the glow of golden moon in peaceful rest, and then to sleep. And now back to you, Patsy.
Thank you, Ken. Okay, this poem is totally different from my usual poem. This is basically a sci-fi Halloween poem. And it is October and we're heading toward Halloween, and who knows if the kids will actually be able to get out and go to Halloween. And I thought, I'll go ahead and read this just for fun. It's called Vision of a Flotilla. Cities made of skeletons, bones touching bones, structuring scaffolds like skyscrapers, wind whistling through the worm-eaten bones. The skeletons grow higher than the sky, connected, floating free beyond the earth's pull. Bones touching bones, they twirl soundlessly, shining white in the bright starlight against the pitch blackness of space. These colonizers of the universe, with their hidden DNA, waltz from galaxy to galaxy, dropping a bone or two like seeds from a dried seed pod, planting the building blocks to bring back the flesh to bones, bones touching bones, carrying their task the dead and dried, driving the earthly DNA across the universal highway. All right, so the next reader at the end of this round is Pat Petro.
Thank you, Patsy. It's been a lot of fun to be a part of this. Thanks for asking me to help out. I am not a poet myself, but my daughter aspires to be. Her name is Anna Pearl, and this is a poem she wrote 2 years ago when she was 10 years old, perhaps on a crisp fall day like this. It's called My Street. You walk down my street, the trees wiggling as though they're saying hello, waving their branches around in the breeze, a big mansion hidden away behind a blanket of trees, standing tall and proud. Up the hill, a cabin awaits your arrival, telling you about its life 100 years ago. The wind whispers in an unknown language by your ear, almost like singing. A random cornfield in the middle of the street, surrounded by abandoned farmhouses with no owners. Where did the farmers go, you wonder? The wind blows the corn around like it's searching for its owner. At the end of the street, there is a very old cemetery. Gravestones mark where people lay. There's skeletons under the ground. A tree growing around a stone seems to be mourning its loss. You notice how everything seems to be alive around you. You hear flowers talking, weeds planning their wars, and the trees saying goodbye to their leaves, falling to the ground. You remember how the corn looked for its owner and how the wind was singing. The cabin and its life 100 years ago, the proud mansion, the waving trees, all on my street. And back to you, Patsy.
Hey, thank you everybody for that open mic. That was a lot of fun. That was wonderful. Okay, well, look, this has been a wonderful experience, and I thank everyone who came today. Thank very special guests we had today with Shana Ritter and Doris Lynch for reading their poems. And thank you to everybody who came to read in the open mic. It has been a pleasure. And thanks to Pat Petro for recording engineering and doing post-production coming up. And so everybody keep well, and we'll see you next time. So did y'all have fun?
Yeah. It was great. It was terrific. It was a lot of fun.
It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Thanks for all your organizing, Pat.